It is always great to sweep the New York Yankees in a Subway Series. Not sure how often that happens, but it's even better when one of your buddies joins the show who's a Yankees fan. We're talking Subway Series. We're talking about maybe a Subway World Series on this edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. And speaking of Just Baseball, got one of our co-founders here today. You can find him on Twitter at Peter Appel 23. Big time Yankees fan who is not too happy, but was still generous enough to come on, spend some time, and talk about a walk-off win and a sweep as the Mets take both of these games at Citi Field. How you doing, Peter?
How do you think I'm doing? I'm doing like shit. It's okay. It's okay, and we're going to talk about it. And the Mets are really good, and it's clear. And I don't think anybody doubted that before coming into this game, but they really proved it these last couple of games.
They did, and I think yesterday's game to me was really more impressive in that when you start off a Subway Series with the history between these two teams, and the Yankees hit 2 home runs in the first inning. I think, as a Mets fan, I was like, okay, here we go. And then Starling Marte, really, I mean, let's just start there actually. Between Starling Marte, Pete Alonso, and Francisco Lindor, I mean, you're three real like premium players, even Jeff McNeil as well, but they had a great series. And Marte gets the walk-off here. This is what the Mets need. You could talk about Vogelbach and who else they might add at the deadline. These are the guys that have to step up for this Mets team to go where they hope they can this year.
The Mets lineup is incredibly loaded. I mean, guys even like Jeff McNeil on defense, I feel like he was holding it down like nobody's business. Brandon Nimmo at least it seemed a good at bat every single AB. He was up there too. Up and down the lineup, there's really no breaks. I mean, you could talk about the catching position, and of course, maybe that's been the break in the lineup. But from 1 to 8, at least, it's scary for opposing pitchers.
It can be, and especially like Eduardo Escobar has been bad this year. This series, he was given good at bats. Obviously, hit the home run in the first game. Tonight, though, Max Scherzer. What was crazy is like the first inning, I think it was 6 pitches. And I know from having played against Max Scherzer for years when he was with the Nationals, when you're a fan watching, like, oh god, Scherzer's got through the first and 6 pitches. He's going to be here through 8 innings, and I think the Yankees are lucky to get him out in the seventh. But dominant, and to me, the game came down to the seventh inning. First and third, Aaron Judge up, and Scherzer just buries a slider, and Judge chases, gets that big strikeout. And to me, that was where the Mets won the game. At least that's what I thought. And then the Yankees battled back. But I mean, to me, I got to wonder what that at bat was like for you as a Yankees fan.
Can I say something? I almost expected it in a weird way. It just felt like that the entire series. I mean, we left on 18 runners on base in game one. I don't know the exact number for game two. I haven't quite looked at the exact box score yet, but it felt very similar. With runners in scoring position, the Yankees were garbage this entire series. They lucked out with a Glaber 2-run bomb, which gave me a little bit of hope, but it still felt like the Mets were in control of this game. You get to the bottom of the ninth inning, and as soon as they got a runner on, I expected it. They shouldn't have brought in Clay Holmes in the eighth. Why'd they bring him in the eighth? Why not the ninth inning? It was not a good series for the Yankees in general, but I have a take about the Yankees that, it's not very Mets related. So this is a Mets show, but I don't know if you're interested in it.
Real quick, just because I pulled the numbers up for you tonight, 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, 9 runners left on base. Just wanted to tell you that.
Game one. I mean, you can't leave that many runners in scoring position or just runners on base in general and expect to win games. I mean, that's just not a winning formula. I think that's clear. I think we all know that as baseball fans.
Absolutely. So what does that take you have on your Yankees here?
So just in the Yankee sense, it's clear, it's obviously not good to lose games. You don't want to lose games and you don't want to lose games. But for the Yankees in this scenario, They have been so good all year, almost been coasting to win after win after win. We're hearing, they're approaching best teams of all time in Yankee history, and that's an extensive history of winning baseball. But losing these past couple of weeks, I mean, even since, we played Boston, like we've been under 500, now losing two straight to the Mets. It's almost a good thing for the Yankees, and I'll tell you why. Brian Cashman, the general manager of the Yankees, is watching this unfold, knowing that this team is not perfect, knowing that they have to add at the deadline, and especially that it's happening right before August 2nd makes me think that the Yankees are going to pony up, probably get a Luis Castillo, probably get another big time bat, maybe an Ian Happ of the Chicago Cubs, really add instead of being complacent, sitting back and saying, you know what? Look how good we are. We don't have to add much. Maybe we'd add a Jose Quintana. I mean, he's even been a good pitcher, but just kind of some cute moves, not the moves that are going to put you over the top. That's what I was saying when we lost two in a row, the Astros. And not just two in a row, the Yankees keep losing to the Astros. But we're not the best team in baseball. The Yankees are not the best team in baseball. And that's clear now. And we know that they need to add. And if Brian Cashman doesn't add, and the Yankees lose in the playoffs again, even early, will he have a job?
It's an interesting take for sure. And I want to get into that because I think, in a similar sense, not that this series makes the Mets add more, but I do think that the way these games broke out continues to highlight some of their flaws. You see, David Peterson goes out in that eighth inning, and you're like, all right, can he be the guy that gets lefties out? And what does he do? He walks Rizzo on 4 pitches, gives up a first pitch homer, tie ball game, did get the next lefty out. But I don't think that he's going to slide right into a bullpen role and be that type of reliever. If they want to use him in the bullpen as like a long man, I think he can fill that role, but that's an issue. Game one, that to get that win, which I really think Buck was playing it out as, I got Scherzer going game two. We got to get this one. So he goes Adam Ottavino for 30 pitches to get 5 outs. Then he goes to Diaz for 4 outs. The bullpen's a problem. Seth Lugo, amazing tonight, but he hasn't been like that.
Out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah. Well, because you were saying that you were just trashing him a couple days ago. So, of course, against your team, he's suddenly just living at 98 with a filthy slider. And it's just, I mean, his stuff tonight was so filthy going against some really good Yankees hitters. And that really was the difference at the end there. And then, of course, obviously, Marte gets the big hit. But I want to talk about what these two teams kind of do at the deadline and really just who's better positioned to get to the playoffs and to be a real force there. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. But as the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. There you can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. They then give you simple tools like screening questions, which make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So getting back to this idea of a Subway World Series and what is it going to take for these two teams to get there? I've talked at nauseum the last couple of weeks what the Mets need to do. So I'm curious. You kind of mentioned getting a frontline starter for the Yankees. What's left for them to put them over the top? Obviously, they're going to cruise to this division, but you're going to go up against the Astros at some point, you would think, in the playoffs, and that's a really good ball club. What do you need to do to be able to beat that team and get to the World Series?
Well, for the Astros, they don't even really have to add a ton because they're about to add Lance McCullers Jr. back into the fold. So you look at their rotation and you look at the Yankees rotation and you would give the edge to the Astros. You look up and down the lineup. The Yankees can bang with anybody, but it's not like the Astros are that far from it. You could maybe even call that a push. I would say the bullpens as well, with how well the Astros bullpen has performed, with Lance McCullers Jr. coming back. Do they put Christian Javier back in a swingman type role? That only adds to one of already the better bullpens in baseball. So the Yankees need to be big time buyers to compete with the Astros. I think the Yankees are the second best team in the American League right now to the Astros. So what the Yankees need to do is they need to add a Luis Castillo type, possibly a Frankie Montas type. You know, do they this is a name that hasn't been floated a ton, but he's on a team that possibly could be interested in dealing him if the right package makes sense. That's a Zach Gallen type from Arizona. They need to add a pitcher like that. I don't want to add a pitcher like a Jose Quintana. Even I don't think the Rangers are going to sell, but like a Martin Perez. I don't think that puts you quite over the top. So they need to add a frontline starter. And when I say they need to add an outfielder, they need to add an outfielder for a reason because Joey Gallo is not going to be on this team in a week. He can't be. Could he be still a good player for someone else? Maybe. Maybe it was the New York thing. We saw the same thing happen to Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray went over to the New York Yankees and was not the pitcher that we thought he was. Then he leaves and he's back to being Sonny Gray. Same thing could happen to Joey Gallo, but it's clear that it's not going to work at this point with the Yankees. So I think what they should do, and they've been on the phone with the Pirates for Brian Reynolds a lot, which is very interesting to me. They're obviously in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes. I'm still sticking to my guns that I don't think he's traded at the deadline. So I'm not putting him in those plans. The plan that I've had for a month now, basically, is Luis Castillo and Ian Happ. Ian Happ's not going to break the bank. Luis Castillo might, but the Yankees have plenty of prospects to do both of those moves. Get Joey Gallo out, maybe get a reliever in return. There's a couple other players on the Yankees right now that haven't been performing that well, like an IKF at shortstop, but I don't see the Yankees making a big time move for a shortstop either. I think they're just going to roll with him. They still have Oswald Peraza, who's a prospect who could be some sort of September call up, maybe give them an added boost at that position. But that's really the game plan, I think, for the Yankees is to add an outfielder and add a big time starting pitcher.
Yeah, and I think that the bottom line when I look at these two teams is I think that they might both be the second best team in their leagues because I think the Dodgers and the Astros, who have been kind of the perennial top teams in each of these leagues, are still there and they're so good at what they do. Every time they bring a prospect up, it's like they hit the ground running. And you're like, all right, here we go. There's another star. Jeremy Pena. Okay, who cares about Carlos Correa? You
Yeah.
look at the Dodgers and for them, it's like, all right, every single year they're going to make a big swing. You talk about the Yankees getting
Wow.
Castillo. I'm
Gavin.
like, Gavin Lux this year finally figured it out. And I said on our trade deadline outlooks, when it came to the Dodgers, I said, I'll be shocked if they don't get Montes or Castillo because it's the Dodgers and Bueller's out. And, they got a million prospects to trade. So it's interesting because I don't know if you quite can catch those teams in a sense of, are you going to have as complete of a roster? Like, are the Mets going to find a way to have a roster as good as the Dodgers? Probably not. But what they can do is they can continue to add on their strengths. That's why they got to go and add a reliever to complement Edwin Diaz. That's why they got to try to get a little more juice in that offense if they can. I should ask you right now because we talked about this yesterday. Go ahead, trash him, trash Vogelbach. You did not like the trade.
I don't understand it. And I've gotten some DMs basically saying why the trade for Holderman, like it wasn't that bad of a deal. He hasn't been in high leverage situations. Maybe he's not the reliever I thought he was. But when I watched him, I thought he performed as one of the better relievers, at least in the past month for the New York Mets. He barely allowed any runs at all. And we were talking on the phone too that maybe he is a little bit older, but he's not that old. He's not a 30-year-old who's been in some journeyman. He's a 26-year-old about to be 27. Maybe he could be a little bit better. A guy like Drew Smith comes to mind, who's maybe regressed, kind of a lot since he really started the season strong. But Drew Smith is going to be a guy throwing in important innings in my eyes for the Mets in the playoffs too. That's what I kind of viewed with Holderman there. What is the problem with the Mets on a game by game basis? It's facing left-handed pitching. That's been their kryptonite this season. But at the same time, when I say kryptonite, I mean for a high level contender because they still beat up on Jordan Montgomery. They can still get to lefties. I'm just thinking about when they have to face Clayton Kershaw, when they have to face Max Fried, when they have to face those type of pitchers. So why'd you add a lefty bat who can't hit a lefty?
Yeah.
That was my thinking there. But we spoke on the phone, and it does make sense that, of course, this is probably not going to be the only move that they make. And Vogelback is most likely going to be a bench bat that you put in against righties. But don't they have like so many of those type of guys? It just didn't make sense to me. It felt kind of like a nonsensical move in my mind. It was just
Yeah.
like, all right, you did it, but I don't know what it helps. I don't know if Vogelback down the line is going to be this great guy off the bench. We saw it in game one when he faced Albert Abreu and struck out on 3 pitches. And it's Albert Abreu's our fifth inning guy. I mean, if he can't put up a great at bat against our fifth inning guy, do you think that in the playoffs he's going to be this amazing bench? I do not think so.
So
I don't think he's that good, and besides the bat, he adds actually nothing else for you. So you're relying on that one home run, when I think Holderman could at least piece together some good innings for you guys in the playoffs when I don't see Dan Vogelback turning on a Kyle Wright fastball. I don't see Dan Vogelback turning on a Julio Urias fastball or a Corbin Burns or any of these guys. So what was the point of it?
Honestly, you're the one person so far who has made me sour on this a little more. When the trade first happened, I was almost originally when I first saw it, I was kind of puzzled. I was like, you just gave up Holderman. Why? I looked at all of the stats, and when I did a deep dive on Vogelback, I was like, all right, I get what they're going for here. And look, as much as you've kind of talked at the Mets lineup since June, it has struggled a lot. And the DH spot, if you don't put Pete Alonso in it this year, the numbers are absolutely abysmal, and that's against right-handed or left-handed pitching. So I got what they were doing. Tonight, you look at what he did. He goes 1 for 2 and draws 2 walks. That's the thing to me, is at least he gives you good at bats, and they're just getting. I mean, JD Davis is just atrocious. I
It's
can't
hilarious.
stand this guy anymore. Yesterday, I said it's like he's swinging with the wiffle bat. Like anything over 93, he just can't touch it. I mean, you talk about what Vogelback's going to do against velocity. I mean, JD, it's awful. So to me, it made sense, but it really comes down to what they complement him with. And I want to kind of get your take on some of the options I've been going through. We're going to
Yeah.
do that on the other side of the break. And I also want to talk about the return of Jacob deGrom because his next start will be in a Mets uniform. But before we get to that, betonline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, as BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the recent reports have been linking the Mets to Wilson Contreras. I've seen some reports now saying that is a priority for them. I talked about this on my show 2 months ago when James McCann first went down with an injury. They should get David Robertson and Wilson Contreras. Arm wrote an article for us about a month later talking about the exact same thing. This keeps coming up. And what I love about this move, because, Wilson Contreras defensively, I think he's definitely a step down from the catchers the Mets have. Tomas Nido as a pitch framer and receiver is just a lot better. But if you have Contreras on this roster, I see him as much of a DH as a catcher to complement Vogelback. And then, in the playoffs, when you need a little more juice in your offense, you can have him start at catcher and you can always sub in. There's different things you can do there. And then Robertson, I think you're pretty familiar with him. I think he's the perfect complement in this bullpen. So you think that trade, when you combine the whole deadline, if it's Vogelbach, Contreras, Robertson, maybe they even get a lefty, is this Mets roster now where it needs to be to edge out the Braves and really compete with the Dodgers in the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I already think they're right there, honestly, even without making the Wilson Contreras move. I really do. I've said it since the beginning of the year. I think the Mets are right there in the top 5 teams of baseball. And if they add a Wilson Contreras, it's anybody's game, especially when they get Jacob deGrom back. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But here was my thinking on the Mets and what I thought that they should have done. And they shouldn't have even done the Dan Vogelbach move. Get Wilson Contreras and get David Robinson. Make that trade. You put Mark Vientos out there. You have Brett Beatty anyway. Vientos could be a guy. He's probably going to be a good player in this league. Like, not discounting him, but that's the player that you then trade in that type of deal. He might not even play third. He might move over to first. He's going to be a big power bat regardless. But like I said, you have Brett Beatty, who's probably the better overall prospect anyway. So you're trading from a prospect where you just have multiple at that position anyway. That makes all the sense in the world. But Trey Mancini on the Orioles wasn't going to be that much more expensive. Why not? If you want to get rid of Holderman, fine, get rid of Holderman. I don't care. Get rid of Holderman, put another prospect in that deal, then send him to Baltimore for a Trey Mancini who rakes lefties. You need a bat like that. He's got more thump than Vogelbach. He's also been around the game. This guy's a warrior cancer survivor. Imagine putting him in that locker room too. That's another piece of added juice even beyond what he brings to the plate. That's what I'm thinking there. And he's also a little bit older too. I'm sure that he could be a fine DH if you want to give Wilson Contreras more time behind the plate. But then if you want to put Wilson Contreras at DH, you could but then put Trey Mancini at first base and give Pete Alonso a little bit of rest as we go into the playoffs. That's what felt like the most sense to me. So my thinking with the Dan Vogelbach trade is that they probably will go get Wilson Contreras, and that's the best move for him, puts him right in contention. But then they add Trey Mancini, and instead of that, and you get Jacob deGrom back coming in hot, they're right there with the Dodgers. I mean, unless the Dodgers do something crazy like add, another version of Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, then it's all over for anyone anyway. But if they don't do something like that, you're right there with the Dodgers. You're right there with the Astros, one of the best teams in baseball that can win a championship.
This all ends with Juan Soto on the Dodgers, and we're just gonna be like, all right, well, they got
Yeah,
Juan Soto, Mookie Betts for
yeah, I'm gonna do the Just Baseball show. You're gonna do Locked On Mets, and we're just gonna be talking about like
just like, all right.
whatever 2023 projections. Are you back on the Angels?
You're back on the Angels. Oh man, yeah. So the one thing I'll say about the Mancini deals, we actually talked about. I had Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles on a couple days ago, and we did a whole show on that. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. As we talked about Mancini and Jorge Lopez. So that's kind of a similar deal to the Contreras Robertson thing. And I think that makes a ton of sense as well for this Mets team. I think that's maybe like the option B right now if they don't get the Robertson Contreras deal done, and then maybe they just kind of ride out the catching situation as is. And who knows, maybe Francisco Alvarez ends up coming up out of nowhere because, that could still happen. I don't expect it to, but he's now caught Jacob deGrom twice and Scherzer once. So we'll see what happens there. And speaking of that, 67 pitches for Jacob deGrom today. Somehow gave up a couple of home runs to minor leaguers. Don't expect that. Ends up giving up those 4 runs. But the bottom line is he's going to be back. The velocity was a little bit down tonight, but Buck Showalter still said next start will come in the big leagues against the Nationals. So that's the thing that's always been there with this Mets team. We have to see him back. We have to see him, make his turn every couple of weeks until we can finally be confident here. But what separates the New York Mets from every other team in baseball is if they get into a playoff series with these guys healthy and you can have Scherzer and deGrom start 4 of 7 games, it's dynamite, and that could make them a favorite in any series.
Exactly. You know me. I bet on baseball every single day. It's not gambling advice, but I bet on baseball every single day. And it's always based on the starting pitchers. And when you have 2 of the top 3 in the game, I would put Corbin Burns right there, but Scherzer's probably 3. You can mix and match them however you want. I don't even care, but they're in the top 3. You have a chance to win. You're the favorite in that game. It could be Jacob deGrom versus Walker Buehler, and the Mets will be favored. Then you have Max Scherzer versus Julio Urias. You're favored. Go to Atlanta. Jacob deGrom versus Max Fried. Although Max Fried pitched pretty well against the Mets are favored in every game, and they have the best chance to win. And then when you got Edwin Diaz back there, who's putting together one of the best seasons by a closer that we've seen in a very long time, they have a chance to win, and they could win the entire thing. I really do think so if they're able to make these moves for the Wilson Contreras.
Yeah.
And you look at the pitching, how can you ever count them out? You can't.
It's the thing that I've been talking about since the offseason when they signed Scherzer, and it's just crazy it's taken us this long to get there. But I mean, this team has always had that as their absolute ceiling. You get these 2 guys together, it's something that it's like the Diamondbacks with Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling. I mean, that team. Look at that roster, and look at and the difference here is the Mets still have Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker, and Carlos Carrasco, who are a lot better than the 3 through 5 on those Diamondbacks teams. But it didn't matter because you had those 2 horses that were dynamite in the playoffs. And I think we know that if they're healthy, Scherzer and deGrom are going to rise to the occasion. And also, last thing I want to touch on here, you get to watch Aaron Judge all the time, and you've seen the incredible season he's put up. You just watch Pete Alonso in a big series, the way he rose to the occasion. This guy is big time. I think he's almost undervalued in the game. People don't give Pete Alonso enough credit for the type of hitter he is and the way he can, play in a big game like he did the last couple of days here.
No doubt about it. Pete Alonso is one of the best first basemen in baseball and is a candidate for NL MVP. Paul Goldschmidt is getting all the shine for good reason. Paul Goldschmidt has been better than Pete Alonso this year, but not by a whole lot. And Paul Goldschmidt will probably win the MVP. And I wouldn't be surprised if Pete Alonso finishes in the top 3 or 4. And it's funny, Francisco Lindor is the big $341 million man. He got one more million than Fernando Tatis Jr. But the best player on this team is probably Pete Alonso outside any of the starting pitchers just on offense. And I don't know if you ask Mets fans when they side Francisco Lindor, would Pete Alonso still be the best player on this team? But I think he is.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. And I mean, you look at the RBI total. I know people, don't care about that as a stat anymore, and RBIs are, aren't as important. It matters the lineup you're in, but you're at 84 RBIs before August. I think it's pretty damn good.
And it's also, there's one thing to say that RBIs aren't that good of a stat. And okay, I get it. But RBIs aren't a good stat when you're comparing players. Like if I say this guy is better than this guy because he has more RBIs, that's not a good argument. But when a guy like Pete Alonso is consistently coming up clutch in big moments to drive in those runs, another guy who's similar to that in a Jose Abreu in Chicago, guys who are run producers, that's what Pete Alonso is. 84 RBIs, you can have runners on base all the time. But the fact that Pete Alonso comes up every single time and seems to get a hit with runners in scoring position, that's what makes him so valuable. And then those counting numbers of RBIs is just gravy. But the fact that you can rely on Pete Alonso when there's a runner on second and 2 outs, and you have the confidence he's going to bring him in against any pitcher in baseball, that is invaluable for a team.
It is. It's been an amazing season for him, and I think that early on in the year I had you on to talk betting, and we said that Pete Alonso is going to lead the league in RBIs. Looking like that bet's going to hit. And if you want to find more of Peter's takes when it comes to that, check out Not Gambling Advice. Also, check out our TikTok at Just Baseball, where he's giving you a lot of good picks. Twitter Spaces, Peter Appel 23. Follow him. A lot of great stuff there. You can follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. That's where you want to go to stay up to date with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.